I'd like to welcome Chris Turner. Chris is the CEO for CMS Controls. Chris, thanks for joining me this morning. I really appreciate your time.
Sure, my pleasure.
So, what I want to do is just talk to you a little bit to get a feel for your experience as a Vistage member and someone who's in one of my CEO peer groups. And where I'd love to start is just to hear you talk a little bit about what initially prompted you to join and to consider giving this a try, being a part of the CEO peer group.
Yeah, so before I was really in a leadership or CEO or president role, I participated in something done by our local Chamber of Commerce, which was called Leadership Raleigh. And essentially that was it was a peer group, but not necessarily of leaders. And, at the end of the day, it was really three things. It was networking, of course. It was exposure to other industries that I may not have, exposure to, whether it be banking or, anything.
Yeah.
And then it was idea sharing. Right. And I really enjoyed it. It was, it was a finite amount of time, meaning it just lasted for a year, almost like on a school year type calendar. But I really liked it. I really loved the exposure and all the things I just named. And so when this opportunity was put in front of me, I figured what better way to really capitalize on that when you only have leaders in the room and people that are on my same level that I could, get advice from or even learn just, industry knowledge from them. Because, what I've found in a very, very short amount of time is no matter what industry you're in, no matter how many employees you have, whether it's 10 or 110 or, 1100, we all have the same challenges.
Yeah.
And we've probably all made a mistake that somebody else can learn from. And I'm certainly guilty of that. And I'm happy to share those that so someone else can, do it a little differently, a little better. So that's really what exposed me to it. I mean, I felt like I was on Vistage Light with that Leadership Raleigh. And this really, really exceeded my expectations as far as knowing how that would be or having a good idea how it would be and how it actually is. So really great experience thus far.
Thank you. So you spoke to this, a little bit in what you just shared, but I'd love to hear a little bit more now that you've been with the group for a while. You were one of the founding members. Talk a little bit about the value that you believe you and also CMS has gained as a result of the time and the experience as a Vistage member.
Yes, it's a great question. I mean, I'm in a little bit of a unique position and a positively unique position that I am transitioning into a bigger CEO role, as you know. And the person that I'm taking over for, and he's just leaving due to retirement. So it's a slow transition, and I have the benefit of conversing and collaborating with him all the time to get advice. But not everybody has that. But even in that role that I have today, he and I may have disagreements, or I may feel strongly about something that he feels strongly about in an opposite way. And as you know, Nicole, just last month or 3 weeks ago in our Vistage meeting, I had an issue or a challenge that I put in front of the group, and it was exactly that. The president of our bigger organization and I had differing views on something. I wanted to make sure I handled that diplomatically and professionally, and also see if my viewpoint even made sense to the bigger group. And it was, I can't tell you how helpful it was. I took the advice of the group, by the way, and I don't know if you followed up, took the advice of the group, and we pulled the plug on the plan that I wasn't comfortable with, and he was completely good with it. Loved the fact that I came to him and all that. So again, I mean, that's just that's happened time and time again at every one of our meetings. It's not always me, but it's usually somebody, has a great success story to tell. But, to kind of, that sounds a little, the answer sounds a little self-centered, but if you look at, my role is to protect. I don't own my company. I'm just in charge of it. Right. So I protect my employees and the investment that the owners have. And when you have a collaborative effort to make key decisions, that is hugely important because, again, to kind of bring it back home, I have a luxury now of having, my bigger president in his role. I won't always have that.
Yeah.
So, you know, they say that it's lonely at the top, and I certainly can appreciate that. And this is absolutely a way that, you know, you can bounce ideas off really smart people that wouldn't be there if they weren't smart people.
Yeah. Yeah. Including yourself. Including yourself.
We'll see.
So talk to me a little bit. You know, a lot of times when I'm talking to folks about this, one of their hesitations, one of their concerns is the time commitment. And so, what would you say to someone who's thinking, I'm too busy, I don't have time for something like this? Sounds good, but what are your thoughts around that?
So it is a concern, and it was one of my concerns, right? I mean, none of us have enough time in the day to do what we're doing, and you know, time management's a challenge. But you know, so in our industry, again, I work for a specialty contractor, and one of the things we struggle with, and you hear it in our industry all the time, is what if we train this person and then they leave? What if we
Mhm.
invest in this person in training and they leave? Well, the rebuttal that not my original thought, it's a very good one, but the rebuttal to that thought is, what if we don't train them and they stay?
Yeah.
Right. So I love that as a kind of a parallel situation. So it sounds corny or almost too cliche, but I would say you don't have time not to do this, right?
Yeah.
Because I think about it, you know, to put it maybe in even really oversimplified terms. If I have you know, I'm trying to decide whether I hire I'm making this up, but hire a COO or I don't hire a COO, right? Just to make
Mhm.
up a situation. The amount of hours I lay awake and think about that and struggle with it and do a spreadsheet and interview this and do an employee feedback here and a peer network here. The amount of time I spent doing that, I probably could have solved it in 1 hour at a Vistage meeting. I
Yeah.
mean, just being honest with you, right? And it's not about how quickly it got done. It's the fact that it got done correctly. You know,
Yeah.
my peers in that meeting will say, here's what I think you should do. Here's why I think you should do it. Don't do this, by the way, because I've done it and it was a mistake, but you really need to do this. And by the way, they're going to tell me something I haven't thought of.
Yeah.
So the time commitment, while it looks daunting, you know, when you go to your Outlook schedule and try to put a placeholder on there, in the grand scheme of things, the ROI is pretty quick and pretty huge.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you for that perspective. So, any last thoughts, Chris? Knowing if someone is thinking about doing this, you know, they bought in, they get it, but they're really trying to kind of decide if they're ready to take the leap. Um, any advice or perspective you would offer in terms of deciding whether or not Vistage would be for you?
Um, you know, I I was a founding member or whatever of our group, and so I never went and sat in on another group. But had I wanted to, I'm sure you would have set that up, and
Yeah.
it was just simply because I didn't ask. But it also goes back to my comfort level was extremely high based on my experience at Leadership Rally. But I would say come to a meeting.
Yeah.
You know, and audit the meeting, right? When you're in college, you went and audited a class. I'll
Yeah.
audit the meeting. And I would say, absolutely, I think, you know, and have some key points you want to take away from there. Or if you've got concerns, you know, Nicole will know what to hit and not hit
Yeah.
while you're
Yeah.
there.
No, that's great advice.
And again, I don't know what's customary or not customary, but you know, reach out to a few people that are in the group or in another group or even in another, you know, somebody in Denver or San Francisco or whatever. You know, what I started finding, we're part of a larger private equity group. And as I started, you know, hey, I had a really great speaker at my Vistage meeting. Oh, you do Vistage? I've done Vistage for 13 years. I do it in Atlanta. I really liked it. The only reason I stopped was because, you know, I retired out of whatever the reason. But
Yeah.
there's a lot. It's kind of like a cult is a really bad word, or it could be
It's
negative.
a
But
community.
I mean it in the most positive sense, right? That there's more people doing it than you realize, and you know, and to kind of put the dot on that I across the T, you know, as we talk about trying to recruit new members or just make our group stronger, I've suggested a few to you that you said they're already in a group.
Yeah.
So it just
Yeah.
goes to show, you know, that it has its value and a lot of people see the value. So
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you for that. Really good advice. You know, give someone a chance to kick the tires a bit and
exactly.
just get that gut check. Even on the group, right? Meeting folks, because that's a big part of it is the relationships and the comfort level. Because in order to get the most of this, you need to be able to come and be transparent and vulnerable and hold yourself and others accountable. So I
That's
appreciate
absolutely
that
right.
advice.
And I think, one of the other things I might add is, if you look at my DISC profile and you look at the DISC profile of others, right? They can be vastly different, just no different than your workplace or even probably your family. But, they're all leaders, could be programmed differently, or a stronger I and a really strong D and a dominant C, whatever.
Yeah.
But they're all leaders for various reasons. And it's their perspective that'll make you so much stronger.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Really appreciate, Chris, you taking the time to do this. It makes a difference for folks to hear from other members in addition to the conversation and conversations that I have with them. So thank you for your time. I'm excited to hear more about the issue that we processed last month, and I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Great. Thank you for having me. I'm passionate about it, so I'm always glad to talk about it.
Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good one.
All right. Safe travels.
Okay.
Bye.